This is for the April 27th Going Solo lesson. Go ahead and type your name and your section here. In the previous lessons, we read a scene that featured dialogue between Dahl and a corporal he met when he landed in Greece. And today we'll read another scene that features a lot of dialogue also. This scene includes a new character named David Koch. We've been focusing a lot on dialogue and how that reveals the story to the reader and is a form of showing versus a form of telling. So you're giving the reader, or the writer is giving the reader, kind of a leeway or room to make decisions about characters on their own through seeing how those characters are and how they interact with other characters. So today we're going to read First Encounter with a Bandit. And again, this focuses on a character named David Koch, who is also in the RAF with Dahl, the speaker. So here's some things that we're going to be looking out for today. We are looking for things that we're learning about David Koch, and we want to think about at what point is Dahl telling us how Koch is versus when is he showing us who he is through the aspects of writing. So, for instance, if he is showing us, he's going to be giving us sensory details or how something looks, tastes, sounds, feels, or smells, sensory details. Action, what is a character doing? And then also, what is a character saying? Dialogue. Those are all versions of showing. Versus when he is telling. Telling would be that he is using adjectives or using words to describe that person or thing, or how the character is feeling. So are they happy, sad, angry, mad? Is the person agitated? Are they rude? Those could all be versions of telling. And those are also character traits. So can you trust the character? How does he speak to other people? Things like that, when the author is specifically telling you how to think about that character. So, and then we're going to go through some questions here as he's showing or telling. And then we're going to look for some ways that he explains the things that he told us. So he may tell us a very distinct description of that character trait, and then he might show us later on how that person is that way through revealing to us things that the character says or does, the actions that they have. And then we're going to look at some flashbacks or flash forwards. So first we're going to start up here in the very first paragraph, and I'm going to play a reading of that paragraph to you.
I was to share a tent with another pilot, and when I ducked my head low and went in, my companion was sitting on his camp bed and threading a piece of string into one of his shoes because the shoelace had broken. He had a long but friendly face, and he introduced himself as David Koch, pronounced Cook. I learned much later that David Cook came from a very noble family, and today, had he not been killed in his hurricane later on, he would have been none other than the Earl of Leicester, owning one of the most enormous and beautiful stately homes in England. Although anyone acting less like a future Earl I have never met. He was warm-hearted and brave and generous, and over the next few weeks we were to become close friends. I sat down on my own camp bed and began to ask him a few questions. Are things out here really as dicey as I've been told? I asked him. Yeah, it's absolutely hopeless, he said, but we're plugging on. The German fighters will be within range of us at any moment now, and then we'll be outnumbered by about 50-1. If they don't get us in the air, they'll wipe us out on the ground. Look, I said, I've never been in action in my life. I haven't the foggiest idea what to do if I meet one of them.
Okay, so our very first question is, list 3 things from the first paragraph that we learned about David Koch. So we're going to go back up here to the very first paragraph. this year. And we're going to look for details of the narrator telling us about David Koch. So, I heard this. I learned much later that he was from a very noble family. So, noble means rich, as we can tell here, owning one of the most enormous and beautiful stately homes in England. So, if we don't know what the word noble means, we could look for explanation later in this sentence that tells us basically that he's rich. He has a very large and beautiful home in England. But he doesn't act like he is from that noble family, so maybe he's humble. He was warm hearted, brave, and generous. So there we're getting very distinct descriptions of how David Koch is. And then over the next few weeks, we would become very close friends. So he is friends with our narrator. So we can write any of those things here at the bottom. So we could say in paragraph 1, I learned that David is, and then use any of those descriptions that we read there. Okay, moving on to the second question. Does David Koch seem like he is going to be an important character in the story? Why or why not? So if we're thinking about the relationship of the narrator to this person that he has just met, we learned a very important sentence here that we were to become very close friends. We also know that he feels comfortable asking him questions. So it seems like he believes, the narrator believes this character a little more than he believed the last character, Corporal, who was kind of what we call dotty or crazy. So he became his companion, right? His friend. He felt comfortable talking to him. So how important do you think that he's going to be in this story? So our character, our narrator, is at war. He doesn't know very much about anything, so he wants to ask David Koch some questions. He feels comfortable asking those questions, and then also he says that he is his friend. So using that information, does it seem like he's going to be an important character in the story, and why or why not? So I believe David Koch is or is not going to be an important character in the story because, and then fill in the sentence. What does our narrator tell us about his relationship